an isolated incident demonstrates that scanning is for
Assalamu alaikum. This is Sisamira in podcast with me, Asma Sitole. On today's episode, we're going to be delving into the fascinating industry of aviation and aerospace. Over the years, we've seen human beings embarking, exploring, and orbiting space, and some telling us we might see human beings potentially moving into Mars. To gain more insights, I'll be having Mahesh, who's an association professor in aerospace mechanics. Mahesh, shukran for joining viewers and listeners.
Hi, thank you, Surprise, for this invitation for this podcast. My name is Mahesh. Full name is Mahesh Sujindran. I'm a associate professor in the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at the Indian Institute of Technology, Hyderabad, India. Broadly in the domain of aerospace engineering, I typically do research, analysis of aerospace vehicles. And that's in a broad sense my introduction. Yeah.
So, what do aerospace engineers do?
Yeah, typically aerospace engineers get into the design, development, and testing of flight vehicles. So, flight vehicles is a broad term that can include some anything like any type of aircraft, both commercial, military type of aircraft, then satellite launch vehicles, satellites, rockets, missiles, helicopters, drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, or anything that flies that are human, that are man-made. So aerospace engineers typically, it's very exciting, do the design,
Hmm.
development, and testing of these types of flight vehicles.
With you mentioning robots and aerospace vehicles, and we've seen so much developments within this industry. And I remember that mentioned about writing a book, and you recently published it. Congratulations on that milestone as well. Do you mind telling us, me and my viewers, that what inspired your book and what can one expect whenever they purchasing your book?
Recently, I co-authored a book titled Introduction to Aerospace Vehicles. It is meant for beginners getting into aerospace engineering or aerospace technology to have a overall view of the different types of flight vehicles. Because the terminologies itself are quite confusing to a beginner, and then we may not be aware of many of the technologies that are available elsewhere. So I felt that there was a gap in a really fundamental book meant for beginners, which covers the broad spectrum of flight vehicles. And there are books which gets into the technical details. I have written at a introductory level with a lot of interest, pictures from museums, air shows, and all, so that having a glimpse through the book will get you started with the different types of flight vehicles. And also it's quite interesting to just even
Mm-hmm.
flip through the book itself.
Mentioning vehicles and robotics and so forth, we're hearing possibilities of human beings moving to Mars. What are the chances, and are we seeing those possibilities happening in the next future?
Yeah, there are a lot of discussions, especially in the aerospace community. Specifically, Elon Musk is pioneering that
Hmm.
effort of human beings exploration to outer planets, etc.
Hmm.
With the current levels of technology, a round trip to Mars can take more than a couple of years. Okay, so
Yes.
that is one of the biggest challenges we will have to overcome. 2 years is quite a long time, right? So 2 or 3 years is quite a long time for a round trip to Mars, and
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not sure whether somebody will be willing to sacrifice 2 or 3 years of their life to go to a round trip to Mars. Apart from that, reducing that time is will be one of the necessities so that people can go to Mars and come back. That will require some breakthrough in technologies, specifically the propulsion systems that will enable you to travel faster. So now
Yes.
itself it is fast, but we need much more faster so that we can reduce the round trip time from years
Mm-hmm.
to maybe months. Okay, that will be one of the key challenges that
Yes.
will have to be overcome if we have to make a round trip to Mars.
Oh.
But significant breakthrough in challenge in some technologies required.
Mm-hmm. I mean, with you mentioning that, it's a possibility that we could see that happening, and I do believe, it's only, has to do with the technologies that we currently have, and once these technologies in mechanics and aerospace advances, we're gonna see that potential or those possibilities actually happening, and we're gonna see so many explorations with other also planets. As a professor, you have interaction with learners on a daily basis, right? And do you believe that the early introduction of aerospace studies at a very intermediate phase is very crucial and is very essential? I mean, with regards to, with us seeing this technologies happening and unfolding in this digital era, we're seeing them actually adapting to such technologies at a very rapid and very convenient way. So my question is, do you see this aviation industry implementing aerospace industry studies in a very early learning of education?
That's a very important point because I strongly believe that the future will see a significant growth in the aviation sector and the space
Mm-hmm.
sector. And to prepare the students for the future, it is very important to get them introduced to these technological aspects at the intermediate level. I mean, at the
Mm-hmm.
very preliminary level, you can just get them exposed, but to get to
Mm-hmm.
know them, the fundamentals at the intermediate level is actually very important because the future you will see a lot of space exploration and the
Mm-hmm.
in countries like say India, China, and all. Even the traditional aviation sector is growing at a very drastic pace. You
Yes.
may
Yes.
see and modern like for example in the next 10-20 years most of the cars on the road may be replaced by the unmanned vehicles or the urban air mobility is picking up at a very fast pace. So rather than owning a car, you will be each one will be owning a small drone or aeroplane, so that
Mm-hmm.
I mean countries like India or many developing countries have these problems of this huge traffic. So with
Yes.
this,
Yes.
this urban air mobility is going to be an alternative where you are not restricted by the roads, but you are
Mm-hmm.
you can go up in the air and go to wherever you want. Okay, that is on the aviation side, and in the space
Yes.
side also lot of explorations. I mean the space is, as we all know, it's infinity, right? So a lot of possibilities exist for exploration to other planets, satellites of other planets, even things like the James Webb Telescope, Hubble Telescope, and all gets tons of information, right? So
Right.
analyzing these and how how it all began. So all these questions can be fundamentally addressed by the scientific exploration to outer planets and outer celestial bodies. So infinite potential exists.
You know what you're saying makes sense because we are developing these technologies around them. They're actually witnessing real life explorations of space missions in real time. And for us to technologies and leave them behind, then who are we creating these technologies for actually? I remember late in 2024, there were astronauts that were stuck in space. And to my mind, I was thinking, what are the chances? I mean, with a long preparation of embarking onto such missions and to have astronauts being stuck into space, what are those chances? And I remember watching a documentary actually, and it stated that there was a part where they mentioned that, whenever astronauts are taking or embarking or taking onto such missions onto space, it alters their DNA. For such astronauts to be stuck there for quite some times, what are the chances?
uh, Aerospace engineers pay attention to as much details as possible, but
Mm-hmm.
still there can be unforeseen circumstances or some tiny thing of failing to work the way we would expect. So there can, and the space is a very unforgiving environment, right? The temperatures are quite different. There is hardly any oxygen outside. Then there are these tiny particles which may be flying at very high speeds, much more than the speeds of a bullet, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the environment is very unforgiving in the outer space. Many of the incidents that may be happening may not be intention will not be intentional. They can be due to a combination of different circumstances, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely they do have alternate arrangements for bringing back, say, for instance, Sunita Williams was stuck in the International Space Station for a few months, more than what she was her planned journey. But definitely, there are plans to bring them back to Earth. So, yes, sometimes things may not happen the way you plan it, but definitely
Mm-hmm.
there are alternate arrangements so that
Yes.
it can be brought back to Earth safely.
I remember my early introduction to space was when I was very young, and I remember studying about the Apollo 11, and that was the first introduction of space, actually. So, do you believe that this industry can be more inclusive with regards to sharing of information, with also, including other developing countries in also, having their own missions, or do you see it by they just have one mission that will explore, all the space frontiers? And also, also cutting on costs and leaving behind of debris and being more sustainable in such a way.
You are touching on a point of more inclusivity among the different countries. In fact, space technology has been limited to, I would say, less than a dozen countries, or the number of countries which are actually capable of space exploration is actually relatively less compared to the total number of countries. So and that limits the possibility of especially developing or underdeveloped countries to really use the potential of space in I mean, just like I told, right, the remote sensing can play a significant role in understanding how the weather changes, climate change is happening, then how
Mm-hmm.
vegetation is changing. So many of the developing or the underdeveloped countries are not fully harnessing the potential of these usages. In fact, there are agencies, but I still believe a lot needs to be done so that the information is shared, the technology is. These are civilian applications, right? The technology is being shared to other countries or developing or underdeveloped countries so that it becomes more inclusive and all are able to harness the potential of these
Mm-hmm.
applications. Technology becomes more efficient, reliable, and
Mm-hmm.
sustainable. From a sustainability point of view, there is one aspect to be considered, because the space is also getting crowded.
Oh,
The
wow.
I mean, the number of satellites that goes into the outer space has increased very drastically over the last
Mhm.
decade or so. So what happens is that some of these satellites remain in the outer space even after their lifetime, and sometimes they disintegrate, and each satellite may disintegrate into thousands and thousands of smaller
Mhm.
particles. Those are actually very dangerous because these travel at very high speeds, maybe tens or hundreds of times the speed of a bullet. So accidentally somebody happens to be in that path, it can be very
Mhm.
dangerous. Okay, so yes, the possibilities do exist, but we also have to ensure that things happen in a sustainable way, where whatever debris or kind of used up satellites are removed
Mhm.
from the outer space, so that it doesn't create any damage for future space explorations.
With you mentioning overcrowding in space and debris being left behind, do you believe that this aviation industry can be very much sustainable, especially what producing biodegradable materials that won't have any harm in our nature, in our Earth, and also to be sustainable in such a way that it will leave room for the next generation to explore space?
I think that you are touching upon the most advanced topics of research in aerospace engineering, where we need to find really uh, ways of removing the space debris. Right now we are at a stage where we are classifying the space debris based on the size or the altitude, height at which
Mhm.
it is moving around. Still, a lot of effort, research has to be done so that we are able to remove these. I mean, yeah, you can just to give a sense of it. We are talking about a particle maybe as small as a tennis ball orbiting at thousands of kilometers above the Earth's
Mhm.
surface, right? How do you go there and collect it and bring it back to Earth? So it's a challenging problem in itself, but that needs to be addressed so that the future space exploration becomes more sustainable. The sustainability of not only the space sector, the sustainability on the traditional aviation sector is also very important, because
Mhm.
the I mean, if you look at the at this instant, more than thousands of aircraft will already be flying in the atmosphere. So the sustainability of the traditional aviation is also very important, and then we research needs to be done on more sustainable forms of aviation, because I mean, as you know, just like automobiles, the aircraft
Mhm.
also sends out carbon dioxide, things like that. So there definitely efforts are in that direction to make the fuel that is being used more
Yes.
environmental friendly, and maybe looking into the future, more what do you call greener solutions are
Mhm.
required for the, because compared to the space exploration, the number of aircraft flying is way more than that, right? So sustainability of that is also very important.
What is your take with regards to artificial intelligence, more especially within this industry of aerospace and aviation?
The industry, AI is going to play a significant role in the aerospace sector also. For example, we do send these lot of satellites, right, for exploring the outer space, as well as for looking into the Earth surface also, right? So
Hmm.
tons of data is generated, and it is almost impossible for human beings to go through all these data and make meaningful information out of it, right? So AI is definitely going to play a significant role in analyzing data, and we have, say, satellites have been sent for few decades, right? So it helps us to understand how weather patterns are changing, how the climatic conditions are changing,
Mm-hmm.
how vegetation is changing, how the density of population is changing. So we have a lot of data, but analyzing it by a human being is almost out of question. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely AI is going to play a significant role in analyzing
All right.
these tons of data. And also another aspect is, say suppose you are planning a mission to Mars or any outer celestial body, right? There are many combinations or many parameters come into play, and figuring out the best possible path to be taken. AI techniques, technologies like AI is definitely going to help. So yes, I do see a lot of application of AI in the future. A lot of application in all fields and also in aerospace engineering.
You mentioned like satellites, which are very much significant. And within the communication space, how are satellites very much important in this aspect?
Yeah, I mean, satellites are going to play a significant role. I mean, they are already playing, but the way Musk and all are envisioning, things are going to change very drastically. Rather than using ground-based cables for internet communication and all, the idea is that satellites will replace you receive internet through satellites. That is going to
Mm-hmm.
be a big changer. And same way, if other modes of communication, say mobile communication, all these possibilities exist, the communication happens through satellite. That is going to be a game changer. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
we always talk about these undersea cables or other type of cables through which communication happens. But you imagine the situation: there are thousands of satellites around the Earth, and then all the communication happens through the satellites. That's going to make things more accessible to remote areas. So,
All right.
cables, the limitation is that you are limited to certain areas only. But you go to remote islands or interior parts of many countries and all, still things are not accessible. But the advantage with the satellite approach is that depending on the number of satellites you deploy, you can take the communication or accessibility to corners of the earth which are not currently connected. So
All right.
yes, communication. I mean, the Starlink at all as proposed is going to play a significant role. And sometimes, like in war-torn countries like Ukraine and all, where the ground-based infrastructure is getting damaged, if the communication is happening through satellites, then you have a fail-free mode of communication.
I remember attending one of the sessions here at the Museum of the Future in Dubai. There was a very interesting panel whereby there were astronauts who just completed a very successful mission onto orbiting space. There was a head of astronauts from NASA who mentioned that before they embark onto such missions, they have to see and look at the aligning of the planets. What did he mean by that? Do you mind unpacking that for us?
That's what I was telling. For example, if you are planning a mission to Mars, say, okay, so you cannot launch anytime you want. Okay,
All
you
right.
need to optimize the time, the placement of Earth with respect to Mars, so that your
Wow.
path becomes less longer. Otherwise,
Mhm.
instead of 1 year, you may be spending 3 4 years in just travel one side itself. So the placement of the relative placement of the planets is very important when you are planning a mission. So and the worst case scenario is if you miss it, you may miss landing on the Mars altogether. Okay, that is a really worst case scenario. So we need to, I mean, when you're planning say a mission to Mars or any celestial object, you need to plan the launch window has to be planned very accurately, so that your mission is kind of the optimum. You are not spending too much time in the travel, or you are not spending too much on the fuel, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Yeah. So yes, a lot of, I mean, that's one aspect of what aerospace engineers do, are trying to figure out when to start your mission, when to touch down on the planet or satellite that you are planning to, and how to optimize the fuel or the time, things like that. And the modern technologies like the artificial intelligence and all can help you
Mm-hmm.
in better planning and having more efficient systems in place.
You know what, Mahesh? This has been a very interesting topic, and I'm so informed. I feel like very much, you know what, up to date with the trends and the insights that are happening within this industry. And I'll definitely link your book. And for those who wants to purchase it, I think it's a good book to read. From me here at CCI Media Inc., I say shukran.